Hi, Pearl Foy again. Just welcome you back to A to Z haircutting. You got all the different parts of the head yesterday, or on your last one, on A1. This is A, the first haircut. We are going A through Z. You will learn every little aspect about every different type of cut, the whys, why nots, what happens, what doesn't happen. It gives you a good understanding and you learn methods. Are you going to learn to cut? It's best that you get yourself a mannequin. This mannequin here, I got from one of my students. I don't like this mannequin. It's real hard to take on and off the stand. It's a little bit more difficult to work with. I can work with it, but for a beginner, my recommendation is to get a mannequin like this. Let me grab this one here. One like this, where you can, you're not going to do this to your client, by the way, where you can pull the hair back. You can find them on Amazon. You can go to Sally's and get one. You do want to get a human hair mannequin. You don't want to get one that's synthetic hair. You need to get a human hair mannequin to do this. But today we're going to learn the zero elevation. In other words, elevation means straight down. There's three things to a haircut. The section, how you section it. The next thing is how you elevate it, or how you're going to hold it. And the most important thing is how you cut it, the direction of the cut. What I want you to see in this mannequin, do you see that I've taken it all the way to the area behind the ear, down into the center nape, and behind the ear on this side? There's a specific on that, because when you do this particular zero elevation haircut, in other words, straight ahead, we're going to travel around the head. These all become guides for you to see where you're at and see where you're going. Remember, this is flat. It starts rounding out at the occipital. So if you don't know these terms, because these are the terms that we're going to be using for every haircut that we do, so it's recommended that you go to A1, listen to the terms, write them down. The other thing that we're going to be doing, of course, is diagramming. Here's the diagram. You can see it. Now I brought it straight across here, but in reality, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me move that. You can see that it goes back behind the ear and picks that up. The subsection is then eventually taken across. You'll see that in just a few minutes once I start cutting. Again, it's in 4 quadrants. However, the top is sectioned off. The reason for the top, and in many of the cuts that we do, is for the natural fall of the hair. That's a big factor. People try and bring it all down, and then the natural fall, because the way the hair moves, in other words, changes things. I mean, what happens here at the vertex? You have cowlicks. That's going to move the hair one way or the other. What happens in the area behind the ear? You have cowlicks. So those are all factors in hair cutting. Mannequins don't. Mannequins, they just grow them straight out. You don't find very many of them with cowlicks. And periodically, you'll find a client, and I'm not going to turn the mannequin around, but along the forehead, they've got cowlicks right there that direct that hair back, forward, side to side. I've seen it just about everyone. And as you know, I've been doing hair for 52 years, so I've got a pretty good concept. It's been a while, you know. I've cut about every type of hair that you can cut. Cutting from A to Z, towards the end, yes, we're going to learn clipper cutting. You'll get to do barber work as well. All right, so what I want to do, before we start cutting our mannequin, I want to pop her up a little bit. Now that's another factor. If you're going to cut, put it where you can see it. For you to have them sit down and for you to bend down, your angle is no longer straight on. You always want your angle to be straight on. See what you're doing. How can you do it correctly if you can't see what you're doing? Again, you want to write it down. Everything I'm doing today, please take notes. I could send you my diagrams. You can get an old cosmetology book, probably at the thrift store, or again on Amazon, get a cosmetology book. It's going to have diagrams. The only way that you're going to learn this is if you diagram it and you learn to read your own instructions. Just like I've stated before, a cake recipe. You can watch somebody do it, but and it's your favorite, you loved it, they've made it forever, and now they're showing you how to do it. but they're not teaching you how to do it unless either you do it yourself or you take notes. I'm teaching you how to do this. I want you to take notes. I want you to practice. By the way, on our first one, A, how many of you went and looked for the lower ridge? That's going to be very, very important in some of the future haircuts. You need to be comfortable with that now to know exactly where the lower ridge is at. Okay, so I'm going to get my shear. And the one thing about a shear, you're not going to hold it like this to cut. You're not going to put your middle finger in there and try and cut the hair. This is where the ring finger goes. This is the tang, and these two are, they're like levels so that you can direct the cut, and a place for your for your middle finger and your index finger. This is the thumb grip, all right? You want to use the very ends of your fingers, or we call it the balls of the fingers, to place. You don't want to take it back to the back. The first thing I want you to practice, I could just go ahead and start cutting. I'm not going to. I want to show you how to hold your shear. You notice that this shear is continually closed. When you're not using your shear, you take your thumb out and you hold it in this form. That's called palming your shear. This is a safety measure for you and whoever you're cutting, so that you don't slice yourself having the shear opened up, or your client. We don't want to do that. All of the haircuts, by the way, are going to be done on mannequins. We're not doing any hair cutting on people. I don't want you to cut people. I want you to cut mannequins. I could show you a haircut and then you'll try it on your child and you'll wonder why it didn't work. Practice on a mannequin, and then I show you the ins and outs of it as to what to look for, what to do. Every step by step, hair cutting A to Z, step-by-step directions. All right, so you're going to take your shear, you're going to hold it at the balls of the fingers. And this is called the primary position right here. You see that? Kind of held up, elbow down a bit, primary position. But do you see that that shear is straight? Remember what I said about this? Section, angle, cut. This is the cutting line right here. This is the cutting line. This is the cutting line. We want a straight cutting line. This is the primary position. This is our secondary position. And this is our extended position. You will use all of those. Now, I'm not going to have you just take your shear and then start cutting. What I want you to do is hold it on the balls of your fingers, as you can see. I want you to hold it straight up. Bring your arm up, look at it. Bring your arm down. Bring your arm up, look at it again. You bring your arm down. Is that shear staying straight? Let's go to the secondary position. Bring your arm up, bring your arm down. Now I want to show you something. Remember, I just told you put it where you can see it. Watch what happens if I let my client sit down and then I decide to bend down. Watch, it's a normal movement. That's the problem with it. What just happened to the shear? Do you see it? It's a normal movement. To make it straight, I have to remember, bring my elbow in. Do you remember that all the time? Not necessarily, because you're busy talking and cutting. So, primary, secondary, extended. Primary, up and down. Close your eyes. Up and down. Is it straight? This, remember I told you that these fingers direct it one way or the other? You will develop an eye for it. You will develop a feel for it the more you do it. Especially if you look at it and say, okay, where do I need to be? Your first cut's not going to be boom. Your first cut's going to be slow, step by step. That's your first cut. That was my first cut, for goodness sake. You know. All right. And you know that I've taught for 32 years. So developing all these little skills have been from teaching for 32 years, have been from learning what I've got to do to make sure the students got it. I'm here to teach you methods. I'm not here to show you. I'm here to teach you. Secondary position, same thing. Up, down. See that? See how it went that way a bit? All right. Up, down. Close your eyes. Up, down. extended position, up, down, close your eyes, up, down. Keep it straight. Learn to look at your shear. Learn to look at what you're cutting. Learn to look at the hair. With the zero elevation, we're going to be looking at it quite a bit. My shear, spray it. Like I said, you can get mannequins, long-haired mannequins at Sally's. I'd recommend you do that. All right, the difficult part in teaching this to a camera is that I have to turn it, and I'm going to have to be cutting at a slight angle. So it makes it just a little bit more difficult. I'll try not to get my back in front of you. Understand that when I'm cutting, I'm going to be doing three things. I'm going to section, and because this is a straight cut, I'm going to be right at the area at the very center nape. I'm going to bring it straight down. I'm going to place my index finger and my middle finger, and I want that taunt, like I'm pulling the hair down. See, it's not coming out. I want to bring it to the length that I want to take off. Don't depend on your fingers. Some people have little crooked bumpy fingers. Depend on your shear. That's what's doing the cutting, not your fingers. If you follow your fingers with the shear, you're not going to get a straight cut. So I'm going to bring this straight down. I've determined I want to take this much off, and just at the center part. You never cut past the second knuckle, by the way. This is your first knuckle, second knuckle, there's your line. All right, secondary position. I want to make sure that the shear is straight. Can everybody see this? And I'm cutting straight across. Always have Band-Aids. You're going to need Band-Aids just in case. You don't cut to the skin. You cut slightly off of it. After you get used to it, you may be getting a little closer. I think I have a little snag right here. Like I said, I don't care for this mannequin. This is an excuse. Okay, notice that I'm using my ring finger to help guide it. Bring it up. Straight. Come on, shear's cut. All right. Now, we're here. Okay, so I've done the first cut, and our camera was a little bit off, so I'm just going to kind of demo that again. We raised it up a bit to give you a better view of what I'm doing right here. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to bring it down center. You can see that that's straight. Make sure, secondary position, straight across, looking at the hair, making sure the shear is straight. Notice that my fingers are a little bit up. If I was following my fingers, I'd have my haircut would not be straight. Follow your shear. So what we want to do, because we're traveling around the head form, and I'm just going to turn this because the mannequin, this particular mannequin, likes to drive me crazy. So we're traveling around the head form. In other words, this is a true zero. If we brought it all to the back, what happens, one law of hair cutting is when hair travels, it gets longer. So if I brought this back to cut it straight across, this would then come out, there'd be a slight angle. It would be a little bit longer. And I'm going to show you what that does. All right? That's a different haircut. Is it wrong? No, not if you want that haircut. And I get that with my students all the time. I have to constantly tell them it's not wrong if a client wants that. But watch what you're doing. Let me wet this down again. So I'm going to bring it back to show you what's going to happen, and then I'm going to take care of it. Because we're traveling, remember, we're traveling around. We're not staying back at the back. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to bring it straight back. I hope you can see it. Straight back. And no more, do not go past the second knuckle. Everything just goes straight back. I keep wanting to turn around, but I won't. And straight back. And I want you to see what's going to happen when I comb this hair down. There's a slight angle from the center, ever so slight. It grows. Once you bring it to the side, it's going to grow. So what I want to do now, I'm going to take care of it, and you can really, I don't know, let me turn this thing around because I want you to see this. Now that I bring this straight down to where I'm going to cut, just a slight angle, all right? Bring it straight down. Look at your hair. Make sure that it's totally straight. So now I'm going to fix that. See where that's a little shorter? That's a little longer. That's because we took it back to the back. We don't want to take it to the back. We want to travel around with it. It's not much, but it does grow, and then you wonder what happened. So this is going to look definitely rounded. I'm going to take it over to the other side. Take care of the other side. And this is the zero elevation haircut. And now what I'm doing, taking this, traveling around. Travel around, there's my line. Make sure that that's straight. Shear is straight. Bring it there. Now, what we're going to do, just as it shows, I'm going to move this down because I don't want any deterrence. You see this line. We've already sectioned this off. So now we are going to take this line out. I'm going to take this down so it's not a deterrent for you, because I want you to see a clear board. So I'm going to bring subsection that's centered right at the occipital area. I showed you how to find the occipital area. So then you have no mistake. Make sure that you have a clear view of what you're doing, of what you're cutting, so that it falls into place for you. I love this spray bottle, by the way. You can't find them at Sally's. I got mine at Makeup Beauty Supply here in Arizona. They're an incredible supply house. Okay, the one thing that you've got to remember is if you cannot see the hair underneath, in other words, your guide, you've taken down too much hair. You need to thin that out. We can see our guide. And I want to make sure my mannequin is totally straight, because that's another thing. Your client has to be straight. Now, when you have them stand up to do this, have them stand up, but tell them not to stand at attention. In other words, don't lock their knees. If they lock their knees, what happens is they're going to faint. It does something with the circulation, and you don't want to do that. So have them stand relaxed, but not this relaxed, not with their hip off to the side. Just kind of straight, and just make sure and mention, please relax your knees, but try and stand straight for me. Now, it's your responsibility to look at them and make sure that they are straight and that their head is straight. Now, again, my excuse is I'm trying to work at an angle, so I've got to make sure that my mannequin is straight. And I hate these mannequins, but, you know, I want to use it up. Hey, sometimes a harder mannequin forces you to learn more. All right, so I'm going to start at the center again. Take it straight down. There's my guide. Do you see the guide underneath? I'm just going to follow that line now. That gave me a line to follow. That's all I'm doing. Follow this line. That's cut. Turn it around. Follow this line. That's cut. And it's even. All right, so now I'm going to go tip of the ear to tip of the ear. Take another section down off the back. You don't want huge sections. And these are called subsections, actually. You want to be able to see your guide, or you're just guessing. If you're guessing, then you're not cutting. Then you don't like the person you're taking care of. Now, there's certain things you're going to see in some of our other videos. We have done some other ones. I had to redo this one because our camera quit. And so, anyway, so I'm redoing this cut. But you will see my mannequin fall off at one time. Those things happen. I'd rather keep it natural because I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to teach you. So those things happen. Doing this for 52 years, you think I'd be perfect by now. But I'm not. I'm human, just like you. So what I want to do, you can see your guide. Definitely see your guide this time. Again, from the center. And it's always center to side or side to center. And again, I make sure that all that hair, see, my eyes are going up and down, making sure that that hair is straight. I'm not just combing this hair and guessing at it. Do you see where I could just comb this hair and it looks straight, but look at that. It's not the correct angle. It's got to be totally straight, traveling around the head form. I'm going to turn my mannequin again, and you can really see it here off to the side. I don't want that. I want this straight. And again, secondary position, only following my guide. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up, down, all the way to the parietal line. You drop your comb, get another one until you sanitize that one. If you're at home, that's up to you, but that's the way I teach my students, you have to. And you want to move that comb out of the way so you don't slip on it, your person doesn't slip on it, you don't want a lawsuit for the haircut that you're doing at home. You pick it up off the floor, make sure and sanitize your hands. The only sanitizer I have in here right now is my Barbicide, which is sanitizer that we use for our tools, and alcohol. Excuse me. All right, so you can definitely see the guide. You can definitely see what's going on there. So I want to make sure that's straight. I want to start at the center. Remember, center to side or side to center. Again, all I'm doing is following that line underneath, traveling around. That's it. And if for some reason you're a little bit longer when you finish on one side, I'm going to tell you the why, and I'm going to show you how to fix it. And I get that every once in a while. Let's just get real here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the flat part of the head. And there's been times with my clients when I do hair with my clients, I mean, and people appreciate this. We'll be talking and stuff, and they're getting ready to leave, and we're just jibber jabber, jibber jabber, jibber jabber, and I notice, hey, there's something that's off there. So I say, you know what? Hang on a minute. Why don't you sit down? Let me see. I just saw something that I need to fix, and they appreciate that. If you're like, oh my God, I can see that it's messed up on that one side, that's going to be sticking out. Do you not think that other people are going to see that? Do you not think that that's going to show up again? It's not going to just show up when they're leaving. It will show up again. And then whose responsibility was it to take care of that problem? It was yours. A lot of people just don't do anything. They let it go. You can't. If you want a faithful client, you're going to take care of that client. And they do truly appreciate it. Okay, now do you see where this is going to be center to side? So now, and if you've got a lot of hair, if somebody's got really thick hair, you want to only do half of that. We can see our guide, but still you'd want to only do half of that because too much hair sometimes tends to, it's not going to roll, but it's just not going to cut as accurately. So you do want fine sections. This mannequin's got some pretty fine sections. My guide is this hair right here, not the hair behind it, this hair right here. The hair right next to this section is my guide to tell me where to move forward. So I can take that as thin as I want, and I'm going to bring it straight out and taking it to that line, making sure that my shear, again, the hair is straight, my shear is straight. And you can see that. All right, I'm going to turn it around because this gives me a problem and I'll be complaining about it the whole time. And for safety, like I said, you keep your shears in your hand the whole time. Shears are very, very expensive, but one thing about shears, I mean, I do this as a business, I do this as teaching. You can go to Sally's and pick up a pair of shears if you're just gonna be taking care of your children, your family members. And I always encourage my students to take care of their family members, friends. The only thing I tell them to do is don't take care of anybody from your church. You mess somebody up, you're gonna have to change religions. I mean, and that's just being real, all right? I'm just telling you because I'm telling you. So I never, ever, ever take care of anybody from my church. Personal friends, maybe. Family members, always. Your family's always gonna say wonderful things about you anyways, aren't they? Okay, so this is my guide. And it would be nice. I mean, if your family members say really good things about you, hey, you're a pretty darn amazing person. Okay, keep traveling around. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna check. Are we even? Bring it around. I have a feeling we're just slightly longer on this side. Remember what I said, it happens, all right? Before you bring the top down, what you wanna do, you wanna take it where that happens, and it's normal. It's called push, I'm pushing, pull. Look at the angle of the cut. Push, and right away I make that corner on the other side, don't I? Okay, the reason for that is this corner right here, because I'm pushing and pulling on the other, and it creates, surprisingly enough, a corner right here, and there it is. I just saw it. Okay, there we are, right there, see it? Very, very minute corner, but watch what happens when I cut it to blend. Watch what happens and see how that corner just grows. As I go around, it gets just a little bit longer. Do you see that? Now, I didn't want to turn it, so let me make sure, because I want to make sure that this, I'm going to stand in front of you for just a sec here, making sure that this is straight, because I want this straight down. I apologize for that. All right, so let's take a look at it. Now we're even. It's always going to be back there. Don't start cutting here to make it even, because then what's going to happen, remember, you're going to start push-pulling. Take that corner, come back on it. Go to the problem. Don't create a problem. Okay, so now this is what I'm talking about, the natural fall. We want this natural fall, I'm just going to put that there, to be natural. Cowlicks here are going to make a difference. Side part's going to make a difference. Center part, what do? Do they part it? Do they not part it? Do they wear it natural? Those are all factors that have to do with hair cutting. So I'm going to give it a center part just because. I'm going to bring it all down. But this is where you would determine, do you wear your hair to the side? If you do, where do you part it? And then you would tell them, now look, if you change your part, remember, it's going to change the cut. It's going to change the way it falls. So let me give her a center part here. Center part is right at the center nose. And right at the center frontal, goes up beyond the apex, and settles into the vertex. Go to class A1 if you don't know what I just said. Like I said, these are going to be spoken at every hair cutting session. So we're at the vertex here, just slightly beyond the apex. And there's very little to cut, isn't there? But this is called a zero elevation haircut. In other words, we're not picking it up. Elevation means you pick it up away from the head. We're not picking it up away from the head. We're holding it down. All the haircuts you're going to learn for a little bit are all going to be held down, surprisingly enough. Our next haircut is the V, doing the V haircut in the back. It comes out okay, but you need really long hair to get that perfect sharp V in the back. There's ways that you can do it. We just give you a method, and we also show you afterwards what happens because of the natural fall of the hair. All right, so I'm going to bring, that's the only time at the frontal area, sorry, at the frontal area, I am going to bring that back. Find my line and cut it. Bring that back, find my line and cut it. Now you're going to see what I'm talking about when it travels. We're going to end up, in the end, we're going to end up with a little corner here. If I take the corner off, it tends to round this out. Again, those are options. Do you want that corner off or do you want it to stay? If they're going to be wearing their hair back, you want to leave it. If they're going to be wearing it forward, you may want to take it off. Again, it's personal options. So I'm just going to bring this around. And all I'm taking is just little fine hairs off because the top doesn't have a lot. Side to center, side to center. I am not going to travel all the way around because your movement tends to change. You'll understand that the first time you do it, the first time you say, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Okay, do it. And then chocolates are good for apologies. Just kidding. But anyways, dark chocolate. I'm going to bring that over. You notice how I'm pulling it back. You see my guide, cutting it straight across, straight down. Look at the natural fall, straight down, still yet, everything straight down. Again, side to center, or center to side. And I'm just getting rid of little tangs here. I don't really think I have to do anything. Now, here's one thing about the zero. On very short hair, let's say you're going mid-neck. It's always wise, especially fine hair, shorter, remember, rule of thumb, shorter moves longer. If I lean this mannequin forward, and remember, the back inverts in, and I comb this straight down, along the nape area, you're going to see a slightly longer section. You can't see it that well on this wet hair, but that's just along the nape area. It doesn't do it so much at the flat area. Okay, we're going to let our timer just go off a minute. I've just got a few more little things to show you. But you can see these little scragglers. People are going to see that when the shorter hair puts their head down to go look at something. They're going to wonder what happened to her haircut. So for very short hair, I'd say at mid-neck, always go and comb the hair straight down, lay that comb down, and just take those off. It's called undercutting in a way. I'm not even going to explain that, but if you have that longer hair, this inverts in, that hair traveled out to be cut. What happens when hair travels? It's a little longer. So that's the why on that. Remember, I'm teaching you the whys. I'm teaching you the hows, and I'm giving you methods on how to do it. Good luck. Come up for our next haircut. It's going to be the V shaping. It gives you a method. Like I said, I would have liked it to have been a little bit deeper V, but you're going to be good with it. Take care. God bless. See you again.